Hello everyone! So today I'm going to show you how to make this oversized balaclava. I did make this for my brother to fit over his ski helmet. It's really nice and big, but I also just love how it looks. This is a crochet granny square project, and then I did a knit border to make the tubing with an I-cord cinch up strand. If you don't know how to knit, I will show you how to make the border. You could also just make a crochet border if you didn't want to do that. Same thing for the I-cord. You could just use some ribbon or cording of your preference, or you could make a crochet I-cord. And then the bottom, I just did a little single crochet border. So it's versatile. You could definitely make it bigger or smaller if you just want to add rows to the granny square, but this is the one that I'll be showing you how to make today. One other thing I forgot to mention is this is a low sew project, so you'll be seaming the granny squares directly instead of sewing them together. The only seaming you will have to do is this live knit edge to fold it over, but otherwise it's completely no sew. And let's get started. For this project I used Loops and Threads Impeccable acrylic from Michaels, as well as a few scraps of random colors I had laying around in the same size. So I will show you how to make a granny square in this video, although if you are a brand new crocheter, I do encourage you to check out my other more in-depth tutorial on making a granny square. I start my granny squares with a magic circle, chain 2, and then place 2 more double crochets into your magic circle. Then chain 1, double crochet 3, and chain again. You're going to repeat double crochet 3, chain 1 2 more times so that you have a total of 4 granny clusters, which a granny cluster equals 3 double crochets, as well as 4 corners, so those chain 1 spaces. Once you have completed your 4 clusters of double crochets and your 4 chain 1 corners, you're going to slip stitch into the first stitch to close your ring, cinch it up by pulling on that little tail of your magic circle, and fasten off. You'll now move on to row 2. Start with a new color by making a slip knot. Stab your hook through that little corner on your granny square and cinch up your slip knot. You're then going to chain 1 and then chain again. This will count as your first double crochet, and so you're going to then place 2 more double crochets into that same corner chain space. You'll chain 1 and then make a cluster of 3 double crochets. So in total, you'll have 2 clusters in the corner. You're going to continue to make 3 double crochets, chain 1, then 3 more double crochets in the same corner space until you reach the beginning of your round. Once you have 8 double crochet clusters with a chain 1 to make 4 corners, you'll slip stitch into that first stitch of the round. Yarn over and fasten off. You'll now have your second row complete. You'll start your third row by making a slip knot with your new color. I recommend attaching your slip knot in the corner when starting a new round. Here I started on the side, but the written instructions and my voiceover will give you instructions for completing by starting in the corner. You're going to chain 2 and then put 2 more double crochets into that chain 1 space. After this, you'll make a granny cluster in the same chain 1 space by putting 3 more double crochets into that chain 1 space. You're going to then move on to your side space. You'll now start to see a pattern where in the side spaces, you're going to put 1 granny cluster of 3 double crochets and no chains. In each of the corner spaces, you'll put 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 more double crochets into that same corner chain 1 space. You'll continue around until you get back to where you started round 3. At the end of round 3, you should have 12 granny clusters total, as well as your 4 corners of 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. To finish off round 3, you'll slip stitch into your first stitch and fasten off, cut your yarn. And now you are going to continue row 3 over and over again until you get to your desired size. For your first granny square, you're going to repeat row 3 until you have 8 rows total. Each side should have 6 granny clusters of 3 double crochets with 4 additional corners of 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. Make another granny square following the exact same steps, but instead of doing the last color, meet me back here. You will now begin to connect your granny squares together on the very last row, and I'm going to show you how you do this. Attach your last color with a slip knot as normal. You definitely want to start in the corner for this part. So attach your yarn to one of your corner chain 1 spaces, chain 2 as normal, and then you are going to make 2 more double crochets into that same chain space and chain 1. Before you make your other corner cluster, you're then going to move over to your granny square that you're wanting to attach to. Go into the first corner that you want to attach to by going through the chain space and making a slip stitch. You'll then continue on by making a 3 double crochet cluster back into the chain space of your loose granny square. So for each corner, you will connect by slip stitching the chain 1 spaces together. For the side spaces, you will put 1 cluster into your loose granny square. Then you will slip stitch into the next side space on your other granny square, and then continue on by again making another cluster as normal into your next space on your original granny square. So you'll go back and forth between making a cluster, slip stitching into the completed granny square, then making another cluster, and going around until you have all the sides that you want attached. For an overview of how to lay out and attach your granny squares, go to this timestamp. On your middle and top row, you're going to run into some spaces where you have multiple corners that you could attach to. In these instances, take 2 of the corners and slip stitch 2 together to combine all the corners into one. Here I had 3 corners I could attach to. I took the 2 that sandwiched my new corner and I put a slip stitch into both of the corner chain 1 spaces before slipping all 3 loops on my hook together. Once you complete the attached sides, you can complete the other sides as normal by putting 2 clusters in each corner with a chain 1 and 1 cluster in each side space. I started by attaching the bottom 4 squares in a loop. Then I moved to the middle 3 squares by attaching on one side to the bottom loop and one side to the next square in the middle. I finished by attaching the last top square on all 3 sides. After you have attached all your granny squares, you will now move on to the borders. So I started by completing the bottom border. I did this with a single crochet row. I did that twice around and then fastened off. So I'm showing you how. Again, you'll attach your yarn instead of into a chain space, you'll attach it into one of your double crochet actual stitches, and then you'll chain 1 and single crochet into each stitch. Once you reach the beginning of the round, you'll slip stitch into your first stitch, chain 1, and then continue to single crochet back around till you finish row 2. Your next step is to make the knit tubing. If you don't know how to knit or you don't want to do this, you can always do the same thing you did for the bottom border, but I recommend 13 rows and then you can sew that folded over. For my knit portion, I used 4.5mm circular needles. Make a slip knot. Stab your needle through one of your double crochets, put the slip knot on your needle and pull it through. You're then going to pick up 1 stitch in each double crochet as well as each chain 1 space. Do this all the way around until you get to the last stitch. When you get to the last stitch, you're going to add 1 more stitch to your needle by using the backwards loop method, or whatever method you prefer. You're going to slip 1 stitch from your left needle over to the right and bind off 1. This will connect your stitches in the round. You'll then put a marker on your right needle to mark beginning of the round. Once you place your marker, you're then going to stockinette or knit in the round until you have a total of 4 knit rows. On your 5th row, you're going to add 2 openings at the bottom center of your tubing so your little I-cord can be threaded through. Find the center of your bottom middle granny square and you're going to place 2 stitch markers evenly placed. These will mark where to put your holes. For mine, I found center and then put my 5 stitches in between my 2 markers. Then continue knitting in the round stockinette till you get to your first marker. You're going to remove your first marker, yarn over, and then knit 2 together. You'll knit the remainder of your center stitches until you get to your next marker. Again, remove your marker, yarn over, and knit 2 together. This will create your 2 holes. You're going to then continue working in the round in stockinette until you have a total of 13 rows. If you're doing a crochet version of the border, I recommend still placing your markers, but instead at your markers you can chain 2, skip 1, and then continue to single crochet as normal. Once you have your 13 rows of stockinette, you're going to place your stitches on hold. You can wrap your tail of your yarn around the opening 3 times before cutting your yarn. You'll use that yarn to sew it down once we finish the I-cord. For your I-cord, you can use the same 4.5mm circular needles, or if you have double pointed needles, you could also use those in place. I'm going to use long tail cast on, so leave a long tail and cast on 4 more stitches. So you'll have 5 stitches total. To make your I-cord, you will then slide your stitches down to the other needle, and then you will knit as normal, pulling that working yarn around the back. You'll continue slipping to the other needle or other side of your needle if you're using double pointed, knitting those stitches, sliding back again until you get to your desired length of I-cord. For my I-cord, I cast it off after 46 inches. I bind it off as normal, so just knitting 2 stitches and then slipping the back stitch over the front stitch on my right needle, then knitting another stitch and continuing to slip it over until I got to my very last stitch. Yarned over on my right needle, pulled that last stitch up and over, and then fastened off by cutting my yarn and pulling it through that last stitch. I then just took my tails and wove them up through my I-cord to secure them. Thread your I-cord through the openings you made in your knit edge. You can also tie a knot at the ends of your I-cord to keep them from slipping back through. For For your very last step, you'll just have to sew down the tubing. Alright, so I made a mistake here, so don't exactly follow what I'm showing you. I'll show you how I fixed it too. But make sure that you're doing what I'm doing, but I forgot to fold my tubing over that I-cord that I threaded through, so I had to re-thread it through my tubing, but it all worked out in the end. Anyways, to sew it down, you're going to take your little tail and put it on a tapestry needle. You're then going to go on the side most away from you on that little raised edge where you picked up your knit stitches. You're going to go through that stitch, then you will go through the stitch that's still on your needles. So take that stitch, go in from the right side and go through that front loop, and then you can pull it through. Here you'll see where I'm fixing my mistake by unthreading and rethreading my I-cord back through my tubing. And then continue on by pulling through your knit edge to one of your live stitches and pulling it off. Pull your yarn tight and continue all the way around until your tubing is folded down and sewn in half around your I-cord to make kind of a loop around it. Last few stitches here that I'm sewing down. After I have slipped off that last stitch from my live needles, I am going to then just tie one knot and weave in my end to secure that. Then I had to go back and weave all of my ends in from my granny squares and cut those off from the inside.
I hope you love your finished product. I'm really excited to give this to my brother, and I definitely need to make myself one as well because I'm obsessed with how this turned out and it's so cozy. If you make this, definitely tag me on Instagram, leave a comment down below, and be sure to like and subscribe.